Truth and justice again. Some men impose the King of Swords. Some crown, nascent forces taking shape, hopes, intentions, conscious goal, conscious awareness, King of Swords. Truth and justice again. Some man in position of authority and experience needs to transform these Seven of Swords experiences of the below card. No, the Seven of Swords, yeah, experiences of the below card. The King of Swords is above all a man of complete integrity who does what is ethically right. Is that what you're looking for above all else? The crown is also your goal or ideal outcome. Here, the King of Swords is a rescue figure, a sort of redemptive father figure who would transform what you've gone through in the past and which has situated how you've had to form and build and refashion yourself. He represents the putting right or restitution of the assault of the past in that Seven of Swords. Freud calls the process transference. This isn't an intellectual understanding. As Freud also said, understanding changes nothing. This is because it won't automatically change the coping mechanisms your subconscious puts in place. In the process of transference, the actual experiences informing your inner life are relived in a positive way and transformed through that process. A banal example would be a boy having his lunch sandwich snatched away by a bully boy classmate at school, so he's had his trust destroyed, but another boy approaches and gives the upset boy his own lunch. The previous bad experience is transfigured by a positive one. We don't have to be a stickler with Freud, nor take everything he says as gospel, but you get the general principle. If you were to meet an honest man with integrity who treats you as a person with value, then you would begin to feel differently about yourself. Sam, you know, you've made me think here. You're right that I'm looking for this. I hadn't thought of it like this before, so what would mend or heal me? Donna, make no mistake, it's not possible to hold yourself into, for those that don't know, the comments by Sam were inserted after, so, but anyway, Donna in the original post was continuing to say, I'm assuming prior to Sam's comments, after having said that meeting an honest man with integrity treats her right, let her, and this person with value would let her begin to feel differently about herself. So make no mistake, Donna continues, make no mistake, it's not possible to haul yourself into a new way of being all alone as if you can ignore how you're treated by others. Donna, this is where I want to implement and or produce and implement the most effective and efficient way for me to be happy about my relationships with women, and I have no one to talk with. This is not to lay a burden on you. This is information from the cosmos. Someone has to transfer or change those feelings for the better by the feelings that Sam was having. Someone has to transfer or referring to Freud or change those feelings for the better by behaving differently towards you. Precisely. My relationships, they were always unhealthy. Perhaps that's what you need in a romantic partner and why you feel you need one with a very particular character, and it's the one who is absolutely resolute and trustworthy. It goes for all of us. Sam, I can't find it. Starting to like the Celtic cross thing a lot. And I started to think this before I said, way before I said this. Donna, behind / recent past influences passing away, events, feelings, situations, the star. Note, traditionally this card is swapped for the future card on the right should the significator be looking away from it. More grid coordinates. The Queen of Cups looks towards it. more grid and coordinates. Nonetheless, I had a very strong sense that the star was in the recent past for Sam, and so did not swap it over. So this is in brackets, in square brackets, so it's a note to the reader of this. Traditionally, this card is swapped for the future card on the right, should the significator be looking away from it. The Queen of Cups looked towards it. Nonetheless, I had a very strong sense. So this does involve altering the future as we discussed before. I mean, altering the quote-unquote future as we discussed before. I had a very strong sense that the star was in the recent past for Sam, and so did not swap over. Here's the second, so that's the end of that, no in brackets, okay. Here's the end of the second major arcana. It's the star that's impacted the current tower situation. There's you, vulnerable, exposed, putting your neck on the line, and hope. Here's faith again. You managed to restore it at times in your life, and it remained in place until quite recently. I think that's the hope in all these job applications and the romantic possibles you've met who haven't been up to the mark. No wonder you feel so devastated, especially if we add that to the below card. Again, they've taken so much from you with little return. The star is also a card of honesty, and these people haven't been upfront. Sam, I don't play games, but other people do. Donna, was your hope restored a short while ago? Sam, I was hoping so. With all the job interviews and meeting possible partners through a dating agency, I was let down. Donna, I often get the star in the past position when it's a meta message and not simply applicable to the specific readings, but rather supervening upon it. I often get the star in the past position when it's a meta message. I often get the star in the past position when it's a meta message and not simply in the past position. It's a meta message and not simply applicable to the specific readings, but rather supervening upon it as a whole. I'm a little confused because I'm projecting my own things about the star and Donna and me, and no, I mean, never mind, complicated, okay. It symbolizes not just your recently resurrected hope finding a job and a partner, hope, I imagine, of finding a job and a partner, but perhaps also divine guidance or someone looking after you and protecting you. Sam, my mom, I feel her around sometimes. Donna, I often get the star when there's a person in spirit who is looking over somebody. Perhaps you feel you're watched over. I don't think we always know exactly how that translates into perceptible help in our everyday lives, although perhaps we're saved from a zillion accidents without knowing. But you may well have a strong spiritual set of helpers. Before/near future, forces already in existence about to show themselves. Events, people, ideas, future situations. Reversed 8 of Cups. Here's the standard Rider-Waite image of the disconsolate chap, head bowed, wandering off into the distance, who knows where. There isn't a path and there isn't sunlight to disclose the way. He doesn't know where he's going, but it doesn't matter in the sense that he knows where he's got to go. As a Cups card, this is about how you're feeling. It's reversed. Reverse cards have an assortment of meanings depending on the surrounding cards. Here, it's quite clear to me. This concerns your inner world. You're not leaving home literally or any kind of geographical shift. You are, however, or very shortly will be able to leave behind the dissatisfaction you're currently experiencing. I love this card here in this position. There's a tinge of regret in letting a few things go that should have been fulfilling, but it's absolutely the right thing to go. The red of his cloak symbolizes a passion and a vibrancy in going. His lifeblood lies in heading off. This is you managing to eclipse and dispense with some old attitudes. It follows on from the realization that the old beliefs are shattered in the Tower card. That lightning bolt above the Tower, see that crown toppling, and a crown also represents the head of the mind, is also insight and aperçu and aha moment, feeding into knowing, what to leave behind in the Eight of Cups. Sam, I can't carry on how I was. Self/you, how you see yourself, view attitudes. No, excuse me, views, attitudes, feelings, how you see the current situation. This card, as is apparent here, also affects the potential outcome of the Crown card. So the self-use card is Justice. This is a major arcana card. This is a major arcana card. This is a major arcana that working at a deep. This is a major arcana card working at a deep and life-changing level. Let's call it the guiding theme of your entire life, and certainly of this reading. The Justice card marries up. The Justice card marries up with the truth and justice themes in the Six of Pentacles, the Seven of Swords, and the King of Swords. It's all very coherent. This card attests to a kind of life purpose or inner journey, which is all about you or your identity. It very much asks your question: why is all this happening to you? You've done nothing to deserve it, yet life seems unfair. The Justice card in this position confirms your question as the motoring engine driving how you think of yourself and your life. Where is the justice? Her upright, where is the justice? Where is the justice? Her upright sword parallels the upright sword. Okay, driving how you think of yourself and your life. Where is the justice? Her upright sword parallels the upright sword of the King of Swords in your gold position. Driving how you think of yourself and your life. Where is the why am I The Justice card in this position confirms your question as the motoring engine driving how you think of yourself and your life. Where is the justice? Why am I Where is the justice? Where's the justice? Her upright sword parallels the Justice card in this position confirms your question as the motoring engine driving how you think of yourself and your life. Where's the justice? The Justice card in this position confirms your question as the motoring engine driving how you think of yourself and your life. Where is the justice? Her upright sword parallels the upright sword of the King of Swords in your gold position. Both hold the sword in the right hand of reason. They're both very rational cards, as contrasted with, say, the Queen of Cups, the High Priestess, or the Moon. Sam, right? There's an exclamation mark and a question mark. Donna, no matter how you analyze matters, 2 plus 2 equals 5 in terms of all logic and reason. Unless you're dealing with mathematicians who say that infinity plus 1 is equal to infinity. Shaman page at NextGen. Under the dictionary, it's the button that says fucking major shit in progress at nextgenshaman.com, at nextgenshaman.com. No matter how you analyze matters, 2 plus 2 equals 5 in terms of all logic and reason. And at that intellectual level, it's right. It's not right. You have no less than 3 crowns in the spread, authority structures in the realm of the mind, and 2 sets of scales. Have you got any Libra in your astrological chart? Sam, I am a Libra. Donna, because it seems that the issue of balance, give and take, harmony, beauty, fairness, right versus wrong, those who stand accused and those who are blamed, even litigation and court procedures, these interrelated themes very much define your life and who you are. So says the Justice card in this position of self. If you ever wondered about a higher purpose, it's this: balancing yourself between extremes, weighing it all up as impartially as possible, and retaining your integrity and inner values. The Justice card is an incredibly powerful card in the tarot. It hasn't quite the ambiguity of many of the others. It's steely resolve. Sam, I don't want to be a bad person, but it's hard not to give in. Donna, in terms of advice, the Sword and the Justice card asks you to discriminate, remain uncompromising on your ethical values, and to cut away whatever no longer serves you. The blue stone in her crown signifies the quote-unquote signifies the third eye. You're nobody's fool. You're nobody's fool, and you do see through deception. Sam, I see it everywhere. Donna, the great pillars suggest the rite of initiation, a learning, where the severe sword of knowledge is in contrast to the scales of mercy and clemency. You're pulled between judging and forgiving, wanting to carry your point of principle and compassion. Reading this with the below card, your innocence has been wrested away by knowledge. Sam, I always want to forgive and let go, but I can't. The knowledge and innocence is that having my innocence taken away too soon, then this carries on with my trust in people always getting ruined. Donna, others / environment, people around you, interactions with friends, family, people at work, anyone involved with your question and how they view the matter. Others, environment, people around you, interactions with friends, family, people at work, anyone involved with your question and how they view the matter. Two of Wands. This is usually a business card, and it's about decisions and partnerships with others. There's an expansion of horizons where you're looking out at the world speculatively, seeing what's out there. At the minute, that seems about right, both in terms of partnerships romantically or business ventures. That is, it reflects what's uppermost in your life with respect to other people and your environment right now and in the past. These are the concerns which propel or motivate you. These are the concerns which propel or motivate your relationships to other people in your surroundings. It's an early card, only a 2, and that suggests you're having to take the initiative to get things moving ahead, and it's still got to come to fruition. As a 2, it also means that at the minute your immediate context, as a 2, it also means that at the minute your immediate context is one of making decisions in relation to both other people and your surroundings. At the minute, or at the minute. Is that British for at this moment? As a 2, it also means that at the minute, your immediate context is one of making decisions in relation to both other people and your surroundings. Donna, I had a business with someone that I'm trying to start again. Hopes / fears, dreams, aspirations, expectations, goals, desires, fears. Knight of Wands. Well, this one is what you want. Action, drive, speed, full steam ahead. The Knights, okay, well, this one is what you want. Action, drive, speed, full steam ahead. The Knights in the Tarot are action cards. These guys are going somewhere, and they don't hang about. The Knight of Wands is the zippiest of them all. So you're hoping that things would just stop being stuck and get going. The inverse is the fear that this isn't happening and your life isn't moving ahead quickly enough. This folds back into the 6 of Pentacles and the obstacle position where money matters. Sam, this is the kind of person my ex-business partner is. Maybe he will get things moving again. Donna, I feel that the Knight of Wands is something of a wild card here. He's full of promise, which might be bluster. He would well want to sweep you off headlong without thinking too much about the consequences and without planning. He might seem exciting and vigorous, but think things through. You'll be attracted by his energy, passion, and enthusiasm, but step back and consider what's on offer and whether you want to hitch a ride with this person. The card somehow doesn't fit with the other cards. It's like a scald or a scorch. It's like a scald or a scorch. like scalding, I think. It's like a scald or a scorch, which might seem less welcome warmth in a time of aridity, but she could get burned. Sam, oh, he bankrupted the business last time. I'm still tempted because he seems like the only option left. Donna, outcome. Here your current state of mind. Reversed Seven of Pentacles. Here's the second Seven of Reflection. Rest. Here's the second Seven of Reflection. Rest, assessment, and contemplation. And the second card of money and material well-being. The Pentacles also relate to health. Upright, the figure in the card isn't sure if all his hard work is going to pay off. He's waiting for his pentacles to open so that he can harvest the fruits of his labors. And it's unclear how long he has to wait. It's a static, unmoving kind of image. The card is one of expectations. I want to read this card in two ways. The first is that the reversed Seven of Pentacles reflects how you feel. It can mean loss, dislocation, despair, hopeless, being stuck, financial lack, and general worry and anxiety. Could you be considering an investment that might be a bad one? Sam, I was the ex-business partner, but I will think it again now. He says he needs the only savings I have. It's not much, and I'm not sure I should gamble it. Donna, the second perspective is the advice this card could be offering. Reversed, it's letting go of expectations that might be too high, and to think carefully about what you already have and how far you've already managed to come. It's saying don't be too hard on yourself. It's saying don't be too hard on yourself. It's saying don't be too hard on yourself. I'm not sure how to convey the exclamation point. It's saying don't be too hard on. Okay, pretend this is still reading. Reversed, it's letting go of expectations that might be too high and to think carefully. Reversed, it's letting go of expectations that might be too high and to think carefully about what you already have and how far you've already managed to come. It's saying, don't be too hard on yourself. I'm not sure if I can do it right. Anyway, it's saying don't be too hard on yourself. It warns you not to give up too soon. Sam, that's where I'm at. I just want to give up. Donna, you're tempted to give in to disillusionment and stop trying out of hopelessness. This card says carry on, as it's too soon to give up. Stay patient, even though that's hard. Here, the reversal also signifies an inner state where you're fretting, about feeling hopeless, worried about money matters and paying the bills, even despairing. But let's return to all of those inputs in your tower feeling. Those golden coins are already on the bush the chap is standing to. You've already done a lot of hard work on yourself, and I'm sure you know that you do have value, and however unfair life has been, you don't deserve it, and there's nothing wrong with you. The everyday or immediate problems have plunged you into feeling that everything is worthless and pointless, but when we go back to your past and how that's formed your sense of self, you can perhaps appreciate where it's coming from and that actually you're not defined by that past. And those events which you feel have demolished your world aren't the main events at all. In a sense, nothing has changed except that these events and disappointments have resurrected your previous vulnerability and self-doubt. Sam, so are you saying nobody ever gets a bad past? So are you saying that nobody ever gets over a bad past completely? Sam again. Well, Donna, thank you for this. It's helped me to think differently. I see why I feel this way. There's more to it than I believed. It's like every knock back connects with my self-esteem, and that was damaged a long time ago. I particularly appreciate the insight into how the kind of man I'm looking for relates to my past. Thank you. I feel more positive and strong after this. It does all fit together now. Donna, talking to the reader now, and I think, Sam, do you see the Celtic cross? And if so, how useful have you found it? I found it extremely useful, and I see it, at least to some extent. Let me see one thing before. Okay, let me see something here. Yeah, as I suspected, the links are the same. One links to the other. Now, might as well continue with Frater Perdurabo. Part 1, what is an intuitive tarot reading? What is a psychic tarot reading? What about me? The account that follows isn't the normal process during my readings. There is no one right way to read the cards, and there's a lot of dispute about how to distinguish between what counts as intuitive, what counts as psychic, and how these inform a reading. One point to note is that neither the psychic nor the intuitive are to be conflated with the medium, who specializes in communicating with the deceased. That said, it's possible for a mediumistic element to enter a reading, but it's not usually the primary element. Here's how I work. In the first instance, I will look at how the traditional meanings work together in the context of the question asked and the issue addressed. This is further enhanced, modified, and situated through intuition. It's a tough label to pin down, as it isn't any one thing, but rather a collective set of thoughts and impressions comprised out of the reader's intellectual skills, lived experience, previously acquired knowledge, sensory apprehensions, and a receptivity to immediate perceptions. For example, just one detail of a card might draw the eye as a nudge, signaling that it has a particular importance. It's possible to add in here the notion of the collective unconscious, but that's beyond the scope of this post. Once again, I love what you're saying. You can read more about it in my About Tarot page. Now, are we talking about the links? Let me click on that, because in the About Tarot page, is it worth rereading? About tarot, what can the tarot do for you? Yeah, we just read this. Yeah. All right. Much of this intuition, as briefly explained above, is subconscious or operating behind the back of specific thoughts and feelings. Sometimes a traditional card meaning might be transformed altogether in light of intuition. The intuitive level can also be perforated through with what might be occasional psychic glints of, or glimmers from elsewhere. That's another ball game. However, although those can happen during the course of reading, they aren't necessary. What matters is how helpful the reading is, and all of those counseling aspects where the reader can engage both with psychology, hopes, fears, where the readers can engage both with psychology. What matters is how helpful the reading is, and all of those counseling aspects. So where the reader can engage both, how helpful the reading is, and all the counseling aspects. Okay. But anyway, what matters is how helpful the reading is, and all of those counseling aspects where the reader can engage both with psychology, hopes, fears, blocks, patterns of thinking, and unconscious motivations, and how these are produced through and applied to the current specific circumstances. For me, much of this can also be reconfigured within a larger socio-philosophical context, although that's a judgment call and may or may not be on point in any one reading. Yet all readers have their own particular backgrounds which can offer further guidance and understanding, and which will inform the readings either directly or indirectly. And all of that is why you'll never get the same interpretation of the same cards from more than one tarot reader. The readers are as unique as you are, and all have varying insights to offer. Occasionally, you'll get a bit more than the odd psychic fragment. And I don't always get those. In fact, some of the most empowering, intense, and life-changing readings haven't had any. At the other extreme, I've had readings that have been completely transmogrified by some psychic, for want of a better word. Even that word psychic isn't at all self-explanatory. Clump from nowhere. And occasionally there's what would be called a ghost, a spirit guide, or some entity that actually interrupts or else pops up alongside. It's rare for me, but does sometimes happen. Perhaps 3 or 4 out of 20 readings gets an extra visitor. Here's an example of one such psychic reading. It was extraordinary, yet actually not especially helpful in the usual ways. I did not have the time to draw advice cards or undertake a new reading. A counseling dimension fell out of the intuitive window, nor did it tell the current horrible world anything she wasn't already aware of, although as it happened she was okay with that. The confirmation seemed to be perhaps what she wanted all along. In fact, I think that was what she was hoping for. Perhaps it was a proof of the extra mundane. Some readings aren't verifiable in quite the way this was. I've chosen what seems a terribly negative and upsetting example for this illustration of a psychic tarot reading. I've chosen it in order to show just how just hard it can be, maybe how hard it can be to manage what can happen in the immediacy of a reading, and in fact, how completely at a loss I was to comprehend and address what I had seen. It doesn't always go happily, it isn't always under control. However, this is also an example which shows how what seemed remorselessly negative to me was actually the expose of a situation which proved positive, beneficial, validating, and reassuring to the client. I don't feel like reading that second part now. The Death card. And the next gen tarot, that's 13. I leave it in their hands. Ghosts and Guides. This is part 1. Ghost Post part 1. Oh! We're going full circle because I read part 2 and part 3. Okay, show all posts with the label of the Death card. Let's see what we got. This is from not very long ago, a couple of months ago. No, it just takes me back to the main page. Today we will touch upon the Death card in the tarot, etc., etc., etc. The Death card. Upright, as we know, at least in the abstract, the Death card in the tarot is all about transformation, endings, and beginnings. If the Death card appears, then change is usually sudden, abrupt, and abrasive. One way of life or aspect of life is snapped into another, yet something is irretrievably interred along the way, never to be revived, dead and buried. It is a card of reincarnation where one form of existence takes the place of the old. Read more. Oh, and this was on Friday the 31st, which makes you think of Friday the 13th. But was it 31st of October? So that would have been Halloween. So it is a card of reincarnation where one form of existence takes the place of the old. This raises fundamental questions about self-identity. Difference and continuity, yes, absolutely. This raises a fundamental question about self-identity. Difference and continuity. I love this. I love how you talk again. I mean, again, I love how you talk. It's different from saying I love how you talk again. There's some of that too, but so what changes and what remains the same? Is death the end? Nothing ever ends, always, everything always ends. What might we understand by death? Is it an absolute extinction, or do we continue in some way? It's sometimes said that the belief in any kind of afterlife is a desire which references a fear, that we desire immortality because we're afraid of death. We cannot accept our own finitude or the limited order of meaningfulness that finitude would describe, and so we project what Sartre calls a counterfeit immortality. One of Nietzsche's problems with theology was that this, he protests, devalues this world in favor of the next. And Christianity or a religion such as the Aztec religions, so many religions tell us this is not the place where you're going to be happy. And I'm against that too, that kind of thinking. One of Nietzsche's problems with theology was that he protests, develops this world in favor of the next. Rather than come to terms with our finitude, we yearn for personal immortality and perhaps a higher meaning, a master plan, which could confer sense and order on our chaotic, contingent, fragile, and often unfair lives. Even grand conspiracy theories fulfill this function. However bizarre and however far a bunch of facts are, quote-unquote facts, are ingeniously distorted and manipulated to fit a theory, we want the kind of cosmic justice system conferring redemption, or at least a tenuously rational explanation for the abhorrent and the brutally senseless, even if this entails scapegoating a section of the population. Young discusses this in terms of salvation myths and his flying saucers. Perhaps we don't want to think we must take responsibility for creating our own meaning. Most religious faiths, traditional or secular, tend to posit another world we come from and return to operating behind the scenes to explain this one. In theatrical terms, a deus ex machina. A god of some description orchestrating the machinery from behind the scenes. In other words, we hope that we might prevail in some way when the physical body has expired. In other words, the hope that we might prevail in some way when the physical body has expired is a deep and wholly understandable psychological impetus. It saves us from the twin horrors of personal responsibility and utter extinction. So on point. I have a problem with the desirable afterlife scenario, to echo Montaigne. What if it's the other way around? Thank you. What if the fear is not that we might die, but that on the contrary we are doomed to continue? Oh, yeah, but possibility that the universe is godless and senseless. Quoting, the eternal silence of infinite spaces fills me with dread. What fills me with even more dread is the prospect of a universe cramped with the babble of everlasting human beings, or a version thereof, and a deathless eternal life, or perhaps one is entitled to one's own infinite space in the universal closet. Death reversed is the card that would pick as the closest cipher to the notion of a ghost. Here there is a difficulty in regenerating, moving on, or leaving behind a particular incarnation. The ghost is moribund, stuck to the heels of the earth. It refuses to change. Perhaps it is not even aware of the necessity. Perhaps it is frightened to leave behind what has been familiar, or it is an unfinished business, or an emotional attachment it cannot break, and so the skeletal reminder remains stagnant, petrified, ossified, calcified in a world that is outgrown. It is a type of living death, entombed in the coffin of a previous existence. The ghost is undead. Here the thin borders between life and death are blurred. The term undead is an oxymoron. A ghost is an oxymoron. It inhabits the interstitial fracture between life and death. It's both at once. However, it is no longer embodied. It contradicts or challenges our scientific consensus about the ordinary biological processes we understand are in order to animate and sustain the possibility of life. How then can it perceive? It has no sense, it has no bodily configuration, or is immaterial. It's an outrage in that sense, and is conveyed by the reticulated and purposeful character of death personified in the terror images. The ghost kills death off. It's the death of death. It has no sting. Not if we don't really die and some part of us continues. Perhaps the real life is in the hereafter, and here below it's a pinched, gnarled, deformed, and sequestered type of existence. Perhaps the real life is in... Not if we don't really die and some part of us continues. Perhaps the real life is in the hereafter, and here below it's a pinched, gnarled, deformed, and sequestered type of existence, as in the allegory of the Kavin Plato's The Republic. We plunge into a type of blindness where we have died out of quote-unquote true life and into the shadows of what we please to call life in the here and now. As Pindar wrote in a surviving fragment, who knows if life be death or death be life? But the ghosts exist in a fashion beyond ourselves, not as an imaginative projection or ghosts just another immortality fantasy. We're starting to go from the death card to the ghost thing, which I'm possibly reserving for some other time.